Seth Huckstead asks, this is great. This is a lovely question. And by being a lovely question, I mean, I'm going to love answering this one. Seth Huckstead says, what are your favorite in-camera practical effects in a movie? I love Coppola's Dracula. Coppola's Dracula is a spectacular one for special effects. The special effects were actually done by my former boss, my boss's 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 boss. I almost never worked directly with him, Gary Gutierrez, who was one of the two co-founders of Colossal Pictures here in San Francisco. Colossal Pictures invented a style of aesthetic execution in which they would throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at a project, and they called it Blendo. You'd recognize the name because that's the name of Jamie's first robot. Blendo was named after Colossal Pictures' aesthetic process of throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at an aesthetic problem. And if you're wondering what an execution of that looks like, the early days of MTV were hella defined by Colossal Pictures' aesthetic excursions. They did those animations of the astronaut on the moon, all that stuff, all those different styles. It's sort of the earliest precursor to Into the Spider-Verse, and that amazing set of juxtapositions of like every kind of animation there is that Lord Miller so lovingly brought to us. So Dracula, Coppola's Dracula has some fantastic special effects and some beautiful, there's train miniatures in that movie. Fabulous. My favorite in-camera special effects movie is Brazil, Terry Gilliam's Brazil. And it came out a couple of years after Tim Burton's Batman. And Tim Burton's Batman is fine. It doesn't hit me where I live. I actually think Batman Returns is vastly superior. I think that the Penguin is a much scarier villain than the Joker in those two movies, and Danny DeVito is such a master. But when the first Batman, Tim Burton's Batman, came out, it got a tremendous amount of attention because of the production design, which was a wonderful designer named Anton Furst, F-U-R-S-T. And it is beautiful design. But I think of Batman and Brazil as two different executions of a very similar kind of vision. And in Brazil, that vision is to create a city that is one of the characters in this movie. And Batman sort of operates in the same way, except that Brazil does it all with miniatures, and Batman does it all with composites and matte shots. And I think it's a great masterclass in the fact that miniatures win. For me, miniatures win. And Brazil has so many amazing miniatures. If you haven't seen Brazil, I really recommend it. I've seen it way too much for my own good. Brazil, when it opened in New York in 1985, it played for 7 months at the 8th Street Playhouse, and I was the projectionist at that theater. So I projected Brazil 3 or 4 times a day, 2 to 4 times a day for 7 months. I know that. I don't even need to watch that movie anymore. In fact, you could show me 15 seconds of that movie, and I could tell you whether it was the European cut, American cut, the television cut, the director's DVD cut, etc. This is how well I know this film, but I'm getting off track. It's not just practical effects, it's in-camera effects. So at the beginning of Brazil, Brazil has the narrative of Brazil is broken by a set of fantastical dreams being had by the film's protagonist, Sam Lowry. And the first dream that you see is actually part of the very opening sequence of Brazil, which is Sam dressed in this iridescent knight armor with wings flying through a landscape. And it is really, really beautiful. And it's a mix of model shots and full close-ups of Jonathan Pryce playing Sam. And the model shots are done in the most spectacular way. They took a basically 1/6 scale model of Jonathan Pryce dressed in the armor with the wings, and then they put a motor in his back that made the wings flap. And now his hands are operating the wings because he's like Icarus, right? It's an ornithopter. And then they overcranked it, so it's flapping like brrr, like this, and then they overcrank the camera so that when they play the camera back at the normal speed, the wings are flapping at this normal pace. But humans, we put more work into the downstroke. So how did they accommodate for that? They put lead weights in the forearms of this clockwork, mechanical winged man, so that when the motor was going on the downstroke, it was pushing against it. It was pushing against its own momentum. And the beauty of that shot is total. All of the shots of Sam Lowry flying, it is a clockwork flying through clouds that is cotton pressed into chicken wire, and it looks unbelievably great. There's a shot where, one of my favorite shots in the film, Sam Lowry meets the renegade rebel plumber played by Robert De Niro. Yeah, no, this movie goes deep. And they're on a balcony and Robert De Niro takes off. And the way he takes off is they're on this balcony. The streets are all like 10 feet wide. So it's nothing but corridors of streets and buildings. And it's like the Mobius future where who knows how far down the ground is in this kind of city. And De Niro grabs a nearby cable, clips a carabiner to it and just jumps off the ledge. And then you cut to this shot of this figure ziplining all the way down, and you get vertigo in your chest. And all it is them dropping a model on a string, again, with an overcranked camera. Brazil might be one of the finest examples of the highest degree of in-camera effects ever executed. Yeah, I feel like I could make that claim. Ian Rigby asked a question. Next, straight to the Brazil Batman discussion. I was wondering if there was one particular special effects gag in any movie that still blows you away, regardless of the fact you know how it's done. To this day, the alien bursting from John Hurt's chest still wows me. Yeah, a spectacular one. And, I particularly love the pause in the chestburster scene. There's this moment when everything stops, and everyone kind of looks around for a second, and then it continues at this crazy pace, and it feels so real. The pacing of I was just watching a video last night doing a breakdown of when they're searching for the face hugger, and you see Ash dip this flashlight into a hole, and then you cut to Ripley, and the tail drops down, and it falls on her shoulder, and I jump every single time. The pacing of that movie is so spectacularly perfect, honestly. But you asked me my favorite gag, and it's going to be every single gag from The Thing. Right from the moment the dog's head splits apart. When you have kids, one of the most fun things about having kids as they grow up is showing them your favorite movies, and specifically when you get it right, that you show them one of your favorite movies and it hits them the way it hit you, that is a particular parenting joy. And you don't get it right all the time, and you're gonna mess it up. You're gonna show them films you love, and they're gonna be like, the special effects are terrible, and you'll be like, do not talk like that, you blaspheme. But The Thing is one of the movies I got right when I showed it to Thing 1 and Thing 2, my boys. I think we were still in our first house in Sunnyside, so they wouldn't be older than 10. 11, they could have been as old as 11. And I know that might sound early to show somebody The Thing, but like once you've grown up on Spirited Away, you can kind of handle a lot of stuff. The dog's head splits open, and all of these tentacles look like they're reaching out, and it's such a convincing effect, and it's all practical. It's all done. I think they might have cranked the camera, which means it's not happening at the actual camera speed, but they're goosing a little bit. But it's hard to tell, and it doesn't really matter because you're just watching all these tentacles, and it really looks like You know, when you watch a vine growing, if you watch a vine growing in time lapse, you can see that it has this algorithm and it spins until it touches something and then it grabs and tries to spin around that. It's kind of really beautiful to watch. This is like that. And the way they did this back then is they just pumped air through latex surgical tubing, tons and tons of air. And when you do that, it blows all around. But then before each take, of course, they're like dressing it and they're coating it and they've got KY jelly and methyl cellulose and all sorts of other chemicals and food dyes. And it's all just like bursting out. And I remember thing one, we're watching in silence and the dog is sitting there and the other dogs are barking. It's really, really intense. It's so smart of John Carpenter to go for the pets in this first like transformation. And the dog like this, and then its head splits into 4 parts like the Demigorgon. And thing one goes, ho, 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 I did not see that coming. And just you hear that from like a 10-year-old I was so proud. But the other one, the Morris's head spider, the whole scene of when the doctor dies and they go to do the paddles on his heart and the chest opens up, bites the hands of the operator off. If you haven't seen the thing, it probably sounds like I'm making this up as I go along. The head separates, falls on the table, grows 8 spider legs, tries to run away, but fails. The thing, like if someone sat next to you at a bus stop and started describing the plot to the thing, you'd be like, I gotta get out of here. What is the best and worst TV makeup job you have seen? Ooh. You're asking specifically TV makeup job. I mean, if you want really bad makeup jobs, you can go to like 1970s British sci-fi television. I don't mean to cast aspersions on 1970s British sci-fi television, but some of those makeups were spectacularly weird. Oh, and one of my favorites is, I love the aliens from the British show Space Precinct, because they did this really specific move where they had face masks where the eyes were in a different place, but the mouth was the actor's mouth. And they built these prosthetics so that the mouth had all the expression you wanted out of a mouth, but the rest of the head was different. And they looked really, really neat. I dug those makeups. Kenny Tait. Do you think there is space for independent FX makers in film, or is it a market that's cornered by the Wētas and the ILMs of this world? I do think there's a space for independent FX makers. I think that space gets bigger every single day. I think that we forget that there are special effects that I can execute on this that are better than anything I could have done in 1986 with all the computers that I had at that moment. So even right now, it's possible to do independent effects work of a reasonable level with a low threshold to entry. And I think the world is better for that. I think the faster processing cycles get, the cheaper those effects will get, and the more you'll get to see lots of different people's executions of their ideas. I mean, just in the simple way that the work that Jon Favreau and John Knoll and the team at Lucasfilm did with the volume for The Mandalorian Season 1 was a democratizing, and I've said this on this channel before, a democratizing of effects work that is really spectacular. And we've seen amazing effects done by people using their televisions and handheld models on sticks. That's so thrilling. So I think there's always going to be Wētas and ILMs and legacies and spectral motions. And I look forward to a day when high quality bespoke effects are more democratized. It's a lovely reality. And again, all of this is engendered by faster processing cycles. And like, lest you think that it's coming, it's already here. This thing can already do remarkable, remarkable stuff in the telling of narratives and the building of fake realities that tell your story.
Thank you for watching that video. Are you as sick of the tosses to membership as I am? Good, because here's a brand new one that I recorded today, and it's nice and short. There are 3 tiers to tested membership, and they all offer awesome stuff. Find out about it by clicking the join link below. We'll see you there.